We're discussing Jonathan Majors on this episode of Cultured. Hey everybody, what's going on? Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Cultured. I think we're on episode 11 after, October, November, December, January, February, March, April. After 7 months, we have done 11 episodes. I don't know. I think I need to start like a Patreon or something. So I can get support. I'm going to look for Patreon and some sponsors. Because I really enjoy doing this podcast, if not for y'all, but at least for myself. Really enjoy talking shit in a microphone. But I'd like to thank you so much for joining me, following and subscribing and sharing. Make sure you hit that bell for a notification so that you know when new videos go up. If you're also following on Spotify, I believe that there's a bell that you can hit that notifies you when new audio and video episodes are uploaded as well. So we're available on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Podcast, and Google Podcast, as well as on this YouTube channel. So thank you so much again for supporting the channel, supporting the podcast. I hope to continue to do more, and I'm going to be cranking them out, baby. So thank you so much for joining me, rather. I want to tell you a little story. So I have a older sister that's 14 years my senior, right? Older sister, 14-year age difference. And when we were younger, we used to smack fight each other all the time. And it would be over stupid stuff. It would be over the record we wanted to listen to. Yes, it was that long ago where everyone listened to vinyl, and it was the main mode. It was the main mode of listening to music. Or when we would fight over what we wanted to watch on TV. Or if it was the last piece of banana pudding. I don't know. We would find reasons to slap each other, right? And it was one of those things between brother and sister. You know, we would just smack each other, whatever, right? And as I grew older, you know, I never really thought about it because it was just, you know, it was my sister and I loved her. And there was no hate or malice behind our smack fights. It was just something we did. But I remember one day, we got into a smack fight so bad that I smacked my sister in the face and her nose bled. And she ran out of the room crying. Now, my father came up a few minutes later. And he whooped the shit out of me. And the reason he did that was what I came to learn soon after, is that he sat me down and he said, "Keenan, you hit your sister so hard that her nose started to bleed. That can never happen again, ever." And I'm thinking, I'm like, yo, we always were slap fighting. We always used to smack fight. I don't know what the problem is. And he went on to explain, and he says, "Keenan, you will never hit a woman ever again in your life. Do you understand me?" And it was weird how I put two and two together at that moment, because in my mind, that was something that I knew. He's like, you will never hit women again. I said, yeah, I know. I shouldn't hit women. I know that. But what does that have to do with Tabitha? Like, what does that have to do with my sister? Yeah, I know. I will never hit a woman. But what does that have to do with me smacking my sister? And he's like, no, your sister's a woman. And you should never, ever have a reason to ever hit a woman, whether it's your sister, whether it's a cousin, whether it's a significant other, girlfriend, wife. Never, ever raise your hand to a woman ever in your life. So that stuck with me, because it really made me think differently about, my relationships with my sister, my relationships with other people. Like, it doesn't matter how close you become or how annoying that person is. There needs to be a margin of restraint when it comes to dealing with people using force, right? All right, let's fast forward. A few more years. I have another story for you that I spoke about on a previous podcast of mine. This was November 20th, 2022. I was going out with a young lady, or a woman that I had met on Hinge, and we had dated we had been on multiple dates. We had hooked up a couple times. And this particular evening, we were going out, and she was already mad with me before we went to our event. So we go to the event, and the reason she was mad was because at this point, I was complaining a lot about my job. And I said, I don't like so-and-so at my job. I want to smack him. He's doing this, he's doing that, they're doing this. I'm annoyed. No one communicates, all that stuff. So I spent the whole week basically talking about this, and it got to a point where this person that I was dating was acting concerned. They were like, oh, I hope things go better for you. I hope you feel good. I hope things, I hope you feel like you can work at this job, whatever. And I thought that we were communicating fine, but apparently she didn't feel that way. So, she was mad that we weren't communicating fine. I kind of showed up late to the date and all that stuff. And then we went to the event, and she had a couple of drinks. And then on our way home, on our way walking back to the car, rather, all of a sudden she just snapped into another person. We were walking, all of a sudden she's like, I'm going to go over here. And she just walks off, right? So I'm staying there for a few minutes, and I don't know where this woman is. I'm like, where did this woman disappear to? And then I shot up the street, and I went up to her, and I was like, yo, what's going on? We should go, whatever, right? And what I came to realize was that she was inebriated. Like, she was blacked out drunk. Even though she was functional and she was communicating with me, she was blacked out drunk, right? So we're walking back to the car, and we get into an argument, and my better judgment was just to leave her on the sidewalk. I said, you know what? I'm going to get in the car. I'm going to go home, right? But the gentleman part in me said, well, I can't just leave this woman in the middle of Koreatown in the middle of the night. So I drive back, pick her up. She gets in the car. And I'm thinking everything's cool. I'm like, okay, well, we had a little fight. We were arguing a little bit, whatever. But, we'll make up. It's fine. I didn't feel like it was unsalvageable. Until I'm driving home, and out of nowhere, she starts putting her hands in my face, right? So I'm driving and I'm trying to see, but she keeps putting her hands in my face like a child. So I instinctively grab her wrist, right? I snap my hand up and grab her wrist, and I might. Look at me. Like, a grab for me, if you got a wrist the size of an iPhone charger cord, it's gonna feel like something. So as soon as I grabbed her wrist, and that's when she went off. She started hitting me. She started slapping me, punching me in the stomach. She took the seatbelt and wrapped it around my neck while also grabbing the steering wheel, trying to. I don't know if she was trying to crash the car. I don't know, but what came out her mouth was, "I'm gonna kill you, motherfucker." Like, it was scary. So I eventually got to her house. I had to drag her out the car because she would not get out. And she went through the whole motion of victim at this point. She's still hitting me and all that stuff. And then all of a sudden she stops hitting me and she goes, "I don't feel safe. I don't feel safe. I don't feel safe." And I said, "Okay, well, you should probably get out the car." Like, at this point, I'm just trying to get home. I'm just trying to get out of here. I'm just trying to get home, right? So she won't get out of the car. So I have to get out of the car myself, and open the passenger door, and drag her out of the passenger seat. And that's when it became Creed 3. That's when it became the Will Smith Oscar slap. That's when it turned into WrestleMania. This bitch started windmilling on me, smacking me in my face, smacking me in the chest, in the stomach. I'm trying to, like, record with my phone so I can have evidence of this. She's like grabbing my phone, throwing my phone on the ground. She grabs my shirt, rips my shirt apart, rips my necklace. Now, I don't know if this was some kink that she had or whatever, but I wasn't feeling it at the moment, right? Then punches in my stomach, punches, and at this point, I'm more worried about what's going to be the aftermath for me at the end of this night. Because the whole time while she's hitting me, I'm holding my hands up like this because I'm like, I don't want no one to think that I'm hitting this woman. I would rather just take the punches and the bruises and all that stuff than to be accused the next day of being a woman beater. So eventually she tired herself out. And I just got in the car and left. Like, she was crying and stuff. I just got in the car, I backed away, and I just left. And that was it, right? So I thought about it. I took pictures of the shirt and the bruises and stuff that I had. I mean, she really didn't hurt me. The only thing that was hurt was my ego. Because what I did was I actually posted, while it was happening, I posted what was happening on Facebook. And the reason... And this is the interesting point. This is the interesting point that people have to keep in mind. As a black man in a situation like this, it's a very scary situation to try to determine what's the correct course of action. Because in this particular case, I thought about calling the police, right? But there was two things. Two things was, I didn't know how quick the police were going to get there. I don't know if there would be enough time. I don't know if there would have been enough time before I would have had to have grabbed her and waiting for the police. You know what I mean? And also, the worry is, how are they going to react when they show up and they see me, a huge dude, holding this woman, you know? So all those things were going through my mind. I was like, I don't know if it's safe for me to call the police. And at the same time, too, this woman, she's a black woman, too. I'm like, I don't know if it's safe for her if I call the police. I want to protect myself, but then at the same time, too, I'm not exactly sure how to without... Because at this time, it's not tit for tat. Because at the same time, remember, this woman was drunk. Like, she had no idea what she was doing, which I found out the next day. So the next day, we had a phone conversation, and she did not remember anything. Through text messages, she denied it. She says, I don't know what's going on. Through phone conversation, she says she didn't know what was going on, but she was still mad at me for not wanting... She remembered that she was mad at me for not wanting to talk to her about work. But for some reason, she just didn't remember this whole 25 minutes of her being the shit out of me. Now, at this point, I don't necessarily think she didn't know. I think for legal purposes, she said she didn't remember, because at the same time, too, while I was trying to protect myself, she was probably trying to also protect herself legally, which I get, I suppose, even though she should go to jail, giving the subject that we're about to talk about. Now, the next day, I did go to the police and I filed a police report. And again, it goes back to the reason why. The reason why is because, first, I was the one that was assaulted. And also, second, I need to keep my hands clean just in case this other person was going to come forth and try to say that I was the one that did the assault. Do you understand, like, the complication of this entire, like, situation? Like, it's not simply a misunderstanding. It's somebody is acting like they're not aware that something traumatic happened to somebody else. And if there's no proof, then it's that person's word against the other. I still got that police report, so we'll see what happens. The person that smacked the shit out of me got to go to the Oscars. And I was at home watching Bel Air. So that's how life goes, I suppose. But that brings me to my boy, Jonathan Majors. I'm recording this episode on April 2nd. I don't know what all is happening with Jonathan Majors. I don't know whether he's been exonerated. I don't know if... Hold on, let me check. Let me check. Let me see. Let me see. Jonathan Majors. What's the latest with Jonathan Majors? If you don't know, if you're living under a rock, which if you are, I don't know how you would discover my podcast, but thanks for listening. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Jonathan Majors, who recently starred in 3 huge movies. 2 of them were successful. Devotion, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, and Creed 3. He was arrested on March 25th for assaulting his girlfriend in New York City. And I do have, initially, I did have mixed feelings about this, given the experience that I have had in the dating scene as a young black man. At first, I was definitely of the ilk of, let me see all of the proof first. Now, what's interesting about that, if this was a few years ago, I would have been like, oh no, this is a conspiracy. This is, they're trying to bring the black man down. He's blowing up and they're trying to bring him down. But then at the same time, I've met niggas. And do you know what it's like sometimes when you have a friend that you can't stop from being goofy? You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of dudes out there that there's a lot of dudes like out there that are unhinged and they can't be stopped. So it's gotten to a point now where I can't even defend. I can't even say, well, that didn't happen. because you never know. I've had a lot of friends that I've actually, we're not friends anymore because they're unable to control themselves. Whether it's a extremely toxic view of women as far as violence against women, or as far as violence against humanity or men, or like if they're like psychopaths, I don't deal with them. If they're too conspiracy theory-y, and they always are talking in hypotheticals, but they don't have any real solution, or they don't have any real responsibility, or they're just not really contributing to anything to society except anger, then I have to let them go. Right? So even I will admit that there's a lot of dudes like that. They're not processing their trauma correctly, and it's hurting them. Because the thing about it is like there's with people like that, there's not really a lot of people around them. So they're usually hurting themselves by being hermits and incels or whatever, and just being weird. So I said, I have to see all the facts. I have to see all these facts because I don't know Jonathan Majors at all. I don't know what he's like. I don't know what he's gone through. I do know that he grew up in Texas. He was born on an army base, I believe. I think in like Kentucky or some shit. Let me look. Jonathan Majors. Jonathan spelled with an A at the end. He was born in California. So he's U.S. Air Force Base, California, and he ended up moving to Texas. It was after his father left, so his father left, and he ended up moving to Texas with his mom and siblings. So his dad wasn't around when he was a kid. He grew up in Texas, and even according to Wikipedia, it said he had a difficult childhood, growing up with recently released criminals such as drug dealers or murderers, or neighbors who were, drug dealers and murderers who were his neighbors, and they usually wore ankle bracelets. Now, as a teenager, Jonathan was arrested for shoplifting, suspended from school for fighting, and at one point he lived in his car while working 2 jobs. After being... All right, let me go ahead and read this again. Jonathan was raised by a single mom in Texas around drug dealers and murderers. As a teenager, he was arrested for shoplifting, suspended from high school for fighting, and at one point had to live in his car while working 2 jobs after being kicked out of his house. I don't know what more to tell you. That affects... Do you understand like the crippling effects that has on a young man? So then he found a safe space in the world of theater, etc. Right? So he. I know dudes just like this. I know dudes just like this. It says he found some solace and joined theater after watching Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight, in which he felt Heath Ledger's performance as the Joker resembled the criminals with moralistic dualities he grew up with. for his complexity of good and evil, leading him to become an actor so he could inspire others like Ledger did to him. So then he went to the University of North Carolina, School of the Arts, and later Yale School of Drama. So, this is the thing. When a person grows up like that, and I don't know the brother's history. I don't know whether he's a therapy guy. I don't know whether he's dealt with this trauma. I don't know what's going on, what's making him tick. But I have friends that have grown up in similar situations that are fine. I've also had friends that have grown up in similar situations that aren't. Or they grew up in foster care, or they grew up where they felt alone. So, I mean, I can't really say. I'm just saying this stuff to give some sense of context of where this could have come from. If he actually did it. I'm not condemning him. I'm not condoning him. I'm just saying if he actually did it. But that gives you the context of the reason why I'm not automatically just going to say, oh, well, it's because they're trying to bring him down. I mean, no, he could have been drunk. She could have been drunk. Now, I believe his girlfriend is white, which makes sense for a lot of theater kids. I don't know. It seemed like a lot of the students that he came up with at university were white as well. Now, keep in mind that Jonathan Majors has only really been acting since 2016. 2016, 2017. So he's fairly new at this. And then on top of that, too, now he's just blowing up, right? And what I liked about Jonathan Majors, because I'm a cinephile. So a lot of times when I actually see, I get to see a lot of new people before anyone else does, because I watch a lot of indie films and all that stuff, right? And I remember Jonathan Majors, I saw him first in The Last Black Man in San Francisco. And then I think I saw him in Hostiles after that. But Hostiles actually came out before The Last Black Man in San Francisco. And I thought Jonathan Majors was great. And what stuck out to me about his character was that his character in that movie was a artistic kind of San Francisco and what do you call it? Like bohemian transplant that was just there. That just took it. Like he was like a sponge in that movie. He was a sponge in a corduroy coat in that movie where he just sat around and just took everything in, right? And it's something similar to like how I grew up, in the sense where it's like, when you have a mind where you write all the time, or you're trying to come up with concepts, or you're creative, you basically just exist within this arena where you are kind of like a wallflower. And sometimes what happens is people look at you like you're weird because you don't really talk too much. You kind of just observe. You listen to what people say. You try to figure out why they said it, right? And there's a particular scene in The Last Black Man in San Francisco where Jonathan Majors' character, which his name is like Montgomery something, like some abstract, goofy name, right? And he has this notebook, right, in the movie. He has this notebook. He wears a corduroy coat all the time, and he has this pencil that he keeps in his ear. And he hangs around a lot of... there's 3 Oakland gangbangers in the movie. that stand on the side of this road that are always just talking shit, right? And what he'll do, he'll just sit there and he will observe them in the movie. He just sat there and he would just observe them. And it got to a point where they would look at him and they were like, "Yo, fool, like what you doing looking at us? You know, you strange, you weird or whatever, right?" And he went up to him and he like put his hands up to their lips and said, "Shh. All right, now do that line one more time, but this time with more conviction." And then he would go and sit down and they would just look at him like he's crazy. And that's just a way he was just his character was that he was just this man that was just existing in spite of his environment. Like he was on his own path. He was on his own trajectory, right? So that's really the first role I saw in him. I'm like, oh, I love this guy. But the issue that I had, what that I was worried about, was that this man has distinct African features. Like he had a big nose, he had big lips, and all that stuff. And I was like, I don't know if Hollywood is going to give him a chance because he looks so black. And I know that's fucked up to say, but it's like when you live in Los Angeles for a while and you hear, you know, people, you know, it's still, there's a lot of racism, there's a lot of discrimination against black features, there's a lot of self-hate that people be talking about. And to a certain extent, there was a lot of self-hate that Jonathan Majors got online from black people. You know, people saying that he looks like he has a civil rights face or he looks like a slave or whatever, right? So I was worried. I said, I don't know if Hollywood is going to give him a chance. But to my pleasant surprise, they did. Like, once you get into a Marvel movie, you have crossed over. I mean, I didn't go see that shit. I don't give a fuck about Marvel movies anymore. But the fact that he was able to cross over, we're like, oh, right. It was like, all right, this is it. You know, I'm sure there's a lot of people that saw him cross over and they got enough confidence themselves. So that's what, you know, I'm a Jonathan Majors fan. He was good in Lovecraft Country. You know, Creed 3, he was amazing in that. I'm a fan. But then something weird started happening with Jonathan Majors. And for some reason, it was something that I would call my friend up and I would talk to him about it. Every time Hollywood would try to make him do some shit, I was like, this is weird. And what it was when they started parading him around as a sex symbol. You know, you got the Essence magazine, the ebony cover and stuff where he had his shirt off and his muscles and all that stuff. And this is what I told my friend. I said, what they're doing now is that they're now introducing him. They're introducing him as the new best thing in Hollywood. And I don't know if that's going to be the best thing for him right now. And what they usually do for you, what they do when it's time for you to parade, when it's time for them to flip the switch for people to accept you as the new thing in Hollywood, is that they got to make sure that people want to fuck you. And the biggest groups that are going to spend money that want to fuck you is women and gays. So, if you notice, they started parading him around with the shirt off, muscles, all that stuff, magazines, sexy, nice clothes and all that stuff. And they said, okay, now we're going after the women. We're gearing this towards black women. Black women need to know that Jonathan Majors is sexy, right? White women need to know that all women need to know that Jonathan Majors is sexy. So we're going to parade him around with his shirt off. We're gonna have him in some nice dress shoes, some weird outfits, right? And then they said, okay, now we got the women. Now we need to get the LGBT on board. So now let's put them in some pink. Let's let's put them in some roller skates. Let's have them carry some roses around so that now, gay dudes will look at him and be like, oh my God, that guy, I want 3 scoops of him. So then, before Creed 3 came out, women and LGBT were on board. And they said, all right, it's time for Jonathan Majors. The switch has been flipped. Jonathan Majors is now on, right? The problem with that is that when it's time for Jonathan Majors to crash and burn, that's the first 2 groups that are going to wipe him out. I actually saw it coming. When Hollywood starts pushing you too hard, something's gonna give, because someone's always going to find your flaws. Now the difference in this case was that no one really went back to his past. This is something that he did up front, recently, which is have some self-control, bro. Like you're about to be Kang in 16 movies. And you can't just walk away from some bullshit. But again, let's remember where Jonathan comes from. His father left. He was raised with anger issues. He was kicked out of school for fighting. He was hanging around gangbangers. Arrested for shoplifting. Now, I'm not saying this to use his past against him, but I'm saying unless things are rectified, history tends to repeat itself. So, he has a white girlfriend. They live in New York. March 25th, 2023. They're coming home from a bar in Brooklyn. I used to live in Brooklyn. To Chelsea. I didn't hang around Chelsea too much. Too bougie for me. And Jonathan gets a text message from another woman, and his girl notices, and she confronts him about it. Because now, Jonathan gets bitches. You see, you start noticing the difference in maturity between different actors and black actors in Hollywood. Like, for example, the difference between Jonathan Majors and Michael B. Jordan, in my opinion, is exactly the difference between Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, right? So nowadays, people are talking a lot about how Martin Luther King was messing around on Coretta. He had a lot of women. He was messing with white women. He was messing with different women and stuff. And the reason I think that is, and this is just a theory, don't quote me on this, no disrespect to Martin Luther King, but Martin Luther King didn't get bitches when he was growing up. He was a pastor's kid. He grew up in the church. He got married. He had children. This was before he became a popular civil rights leader, right? On the other side, Malcolm X, he grew up in the streets. He grew up Detroit Red. When he was Detroit Red, he fucked all the white hoes, did all the cocaine, went to prison. He had been around the block, grew up with prostitutes, had swag, was tall, had red hair, was friends with Red Fox. They probably did all the cocaine in Chicago. So then by the time Malcolm X became a civil rights leader, he had already been down that path and he knew it wasn't for him. And he saw the detrimental effect that it had on the community. So he had a resolve when he wanted to become a leader in the community. That's why his speeches were much more poignant and direct. Like he specifically said, look, man, these white liberals, they don't know what they're talking about. They're going to infiltrate. They're going to try to break us down. We need to stop that shit. Look, you guys in the Nation of Islam, y'all doing some bullshit. Y'all need to stop because we need to be leaders. We need to lead by example. Then they smoked his ass because he's like, my resolve. His resolve was too great than his surroundings. And he said, look, these are the things, if we want to succeed as a people, these are the things we need to do because I've already been down this road. Nigga, I was Detroit Red. I know where this leads. Now. And that's the reason why Malcolm X was friends with fuck. What's his name? Bubsy Johnson. Because he understood. He's like, look, I'm trying to get you on the straight and narrow. Bumpy Johnson. On the straight and narrow because I know where this leads, my brother. I was down this road with you. You know, they knew each other growing up. That's Michael B. Jordan. Michael B. Jordan had been acting since he was a child. He had seen the way Hollywood works. He had Denzel Washington as a mentor, and Denzel probably took him to the side and said, look, man, if you want to make it as a, who knows, Sidney Poitier and Denzel Washington could have had a meeting with Michael B. Jordan and said, look, man, if you're trying to be a black male actor in Hollywood, this is what you need to do. You need to avoid all the bitches in public. Like, don't be hanging around them in public. Only mess with those that have something to lose. Be respectable, dress nice, smile, be professional, and be on time, and brush your teeth. That's probably what they told Michael B. Jordan. Jonathan Majors has been acting since 2017 professionally. Coming right out of college. Hanging around all them white folks. Dating white women. He's Martin Luther King. Because when Martin Luther King became popular, he's like, I can get white bitches too? And that's why his message was, we all need to come together. Judge a person based on their character, not the color of their skin, and because everybody's pussy is pink. I don't know if I don't know if Jonathan Majors had the coaching that he needed before getting into this type of fame. That's all I'm saying. So anyway, he's now getting women's attention. They're texting him and all that stuff. So his girlfriend sees, and she gets mad and confronts him on it. I don't know how she confronted him. They don't say. I don't know because they're coming back from the bar. I don't know if she was blackout drunk, like my experience, and started slapping him or whatever. And instead of him holding his hands up, he slapped her back. I don't know what happened, but she ended up going to the hospital with bruises and lacerations, and he got arrested. And you know, his lawyer, he got released from custody the same day his lawyer said he didn't do nothing wrong, even though on the 26th he was charged. But then after that, they say the woman recanted her allegations, which, I mean, it's whatever. I mean, I'm not going to jump on that and say, oh, yeah, that means because she's lying. I'm not going to jump on that, because the problem with that is there's a couple things. That doesn't mean he's innocent. You know what I'm saying? Like, he has money. Like, Disney could have been like, yo, bitch, take these Disney dollars and shut the fuck up. Right? But what they did was they released on the 30th, his lawyer released messages from allegedly a text that his girlfriend sent. And you know what? This doesn't make him look any better, because the text messages say They said they had to arrest you as protocol when they saw the injuries on me and they knew we had a fight. Okay, well, maybe they had a fight. I don't know. I'm so angry that they did, and I'm sorry you're in this position. We'll make sure nothing happens. We'll make sure nothing happens about this. I told them it was my fault for trying to grab your phone. I only just got out of hospital. And then she said, I reiterated how this was not an attack and they do not have my blessing on any charges being placed. I read the paper they gave me about strangulation, and I said point blank, this did not occur and should be removed immediately. I don't know. That sounds like it's like coach, because who uses reiterated like in a normal sentence? Like who texts reiterated? I don't even say reiterated, and I use words like preposterous and salutations. So I don't know. What this means to me is that, brothers, you have to have some discipline. Meaning, you have to have discernment on situations that you put yourself in, controlling your temper, and also how you react to things. Now, I don't know. Jonathan Majors is a big guy. And if she isn't anything less than a neck brace, I don't know if he actually did something, or maybe she smacked her head on the back of a cab. There's apparently video evidence showing that he did not put her hands on her. I mean, I'm waiting for that to be released. Which I don't know why they just haven't released it yet, because when there's like a school shooting or something, they released a video like an hour after it happened. So I don't know if there's some type of procedure with this. But look, I hope the brother's innocent. I hope he gets exonerated. I hope he's able to be Kang. I mean, I don't know if that's going to save the Marvel movies to begin with, because no one's going to watch them shits anyway. But look, all I know is that I'm glad that my dad taught me early not to get into smack fights with women. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Cultured. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, hit that like button. Hit that bell for notifications. Please subscribe. Share this. Get the word out. Trying to build this channel up. More content. If you want, you can follow me on Instagram at Keenan Jerome Floyd. Well, actually, at Keenan J. Floyd. KENANJFLOYD. And on Twitter, same name. Also, go to my website, join my mailing list, www.KeenanJeromeFloyd.com, so you can see about upcoming stand-up comedy shows that I will be performing this year. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll catch you next time on Cultured.
I don't know if you have heard that in my